Hi everyone, this is the May 31st Jupyter IPython dev meeting. And why don't we start? I'm catching up. I've been away on travel for a few weeks, so I've got a lot of catching up to do. As Jamie mentioned on the hackpad, it's PyCon, so we're probably missing a few people, but we'll go with who we have and we'll leave the recording up. So Jamie, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, sure.
You're up first on the agenda.
Yeah. Let's see here. I am not on the page, but
I can put it up.
Okay, cool.
There's
All right. So, yeah, last week I spent a lot of time with the data science education program, and they did a retrospective of how the last semester went, and then how they want the next semester to go, so the fall semester. So there's some notes up in a Jupyter shared document drive on Google Drive or folder that kind of puts forth their goals for the next term. So, I think there are a few instructors there, and they would like it to go a little bit more smoothly with fewer surprises. And some of that has to do with just how the course is laid out, and also with some of the technology. So I'm working with Min and Fernando and Elaine and some other folks on the DCEP team to help move that forward. So I think the semester is going to come very quickly. So I want to stay on top of that to make sure they're ready to go out of the gates.
Cool.
So yeah, that was my first point. So continue to work through the roadmap and clarify some items with some team members. So I've reached out to some folks on the team just to clarify some of the differences I found between the hackpad notes from the dev meeting and the roadmap that we have in GitHub. So that's in process. Still working on that statement of work for the tech writer. Attended a really cool talk last week given by Matt Rockland. Neat stuff. I also debriefed with Jess about NBGrader before she left. So I have a really good set of notes of where NBGrader is, what the plans are for moving that forward. And the DCEP folks were asking about NBGrader, so those are good to have. I'll put those in a shared location. No real blockers, except the learning curve. So I'm just keeping on going. I watched I watched a talk on Jupyter Hub from PyData. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So thanks for that. And that's all I have.
Right. Quick question. I was wondering if are there parts of the discussion with data science education folks that we can put in a more public location, whether it's kind of a public hackpad or something that is not, because Google Drive tends to be more for sort of semi-quasi-private stuff.
Yeah.
And so there may be notes that they took there that they consider to be part of what they're doing at Berkeley that we know that they may not want to put in public. But kind of from the project perspective, I think we want to try to keep as much as possible that those ideas, and also because they can benefit people at other institutions who have nothing to do with Berkeley and who may have similar concerns or questions or whatnot. And I know it's a little tricky because you're doing the work and kind of meeting with them there, and it's on probably one of the Berkeley account Google Drives. But we want to find a way to like surface whatever can be public out of those discussions, and that can help other institutions as well.
Sure. Yeah, I can ask them if we can post some of their notes from the meeting. Would you guys feel comfortable with those raw notes that I have going out in public space?
You see our hackpads. And part of it is sort of to encourage our development to be out in as much of the public eye as possible, while respecting that the Berkeley people may have a few things about how they're doing things on campus that they say, no, we don't want this posted up on a public URL.
Sure.
Anything else or any other questions for Jamie from anyone? Is anyone else from who's in the meeting kind of involved or has any other feedback from kind of educational Jupyter Hub deployments that you can relay to us? I think right today we have most of the folks who are coming more on the industry side, but you may have heard. Anyone have anything on that front? Okay. All right. Ben, go for it.
Yeah, I've mostly been, it's been a bit of a busy month or so with a Phoenix conference here in Norway and PyData and stuff, and working on some grant proposal stuff. and but all of that is behind me now, so I'm back full on into the Jupyter Hub stuff we talked about at the dev meeting, and I've merged some new authentication stuff, and I'm charging ahead there to make it using NBGrader and stuff as kind of the canonical example of the thing to make easier. The main things that are kind of for other people are EuroSciPy stuff is due Friday, so if we want to do something for EuroSciPy, I've got the folks here are going to do a poster on the NBDime stuff, but if we want to do a tutorial, Thomas and I can figure out if there's something we want to do. I don't know if we want to do something because I feel like I've kind of done a presentation on every aspect of stuff in the past 6 or 9 months, but EuroSciPy is a bit of a different audience, so maybe repeating something is appropriate. Figuring out what if anything, will definitely go regardless of whether we present anything, but if there's something that we think should get presented as a talk or tutorial.
What are you thinking, more of a talk or more of a tutorial?
I don't know. I guess we could do just kind of a state of things, what's coming kind of talk, or we could do our IPython in depth kind of tutorial. Having just done the Perl tutorial at SciPy in July and Jupyter Hub tutorial and various things in the last few months. I guess we haven't done IPython in depth in a little while, although other people have.
One of the things you might do is we'll be giving a Jupyter Lab talk at SciPy in Austin, and I wonder if there'll be enough of a different audience at EuroSciPy that you can just recycle that talk, throw in whatever we've done from July to August, and then it's in August.
Yeah, it's in late August.
Yeah, so
just kind of a what's new kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll have a Jupyter.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That's something kind of on Jupyter Lab and maybe demonstrating how a plugin can be sort of the design of the architecture for plugins, how things can talk to each other, the new model, the new sort of patterns of interaction that you can get there, the web console as a replacement for the Qt console, sort of the laying out the state of that system and that things are coming from this front. And maybe also highlighting some of the dashboarding stuff from Peter and his team, if they're okay with that you kind of speak for them. But I think there's some good stuff there.
You're welcome to grab our abstract and just use it. Like, it should be pretty easy to, if you want to just recycle our talk, to be able to get the description and abstract based on ours.
We can do kind of a variation on that. That makes sense. And the other thing is that we've got pretty close to every one of our repos is kind of due for a release nowish, so we can kind of start the release process on most of them, I think.
Okay, so actually that would be a good thing for you to kind of get closely looped into the release process, so that we can begin to kind of put some of that on your plate gradually and see what of that can be automated and can be, or semi-automated and controlled by you.
Sure.
I think that would be kind of, it's kind of a good choke point at the top level of the project for you to tackle the choke and because that's one thing that tends to kind of clog everyone quite a bit.
Okay. So
and one thing.
Sorry, Min.
The main thing that's very different now than when it was monolithic is that for most repos, a release is not a big deal. That it's just, we've got a few things merged, it's time to cut a release. It takes an hour. And it's a small thing. The notebook repo and the IPython repo are, of course, significant exceptions to that. But for a lot of the small ones, with the number of packages we have right now, we should probably be doing a release of something every week.
And that's why I think it'd be good for you to get into that group. I don't know if we want to do a little bit of a release party, Min, with you and Jamie, and I'm happy to help as well. So that we transfer. I mean, I'm thinking of transferring some of that knowledge.
Sure, yeah.
Not necessarily asking that you pick it up like right off the bat, that you can get involved in the process.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And learn.
Sure. We probably want to have a better communication strategy and way of telling people what's new and how to upgrade and user. For minor releases, it's fine. It's just the fixes.
And again, for the big ones, IPython and Notebook, the process is a bit different because there's a process. A lot of the others are just cut master and put it out there.
Okay. Is there any sort of integration testing that's done before they get pushed out?
Not across repos. That's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, we don't really have.
Well, we've got master of everything is always tested together.
Okay.
So cutting a release should never affect. Everyday master of everything is fine.
Okay.
If you request, especially on you write to Travis support and you ask for a cron job, they can set up a weekly cron job where you could have a repository that just tests everything of stable. You just have to request the page to be enabled per account. And you can just check, like, run this branch weekly without having to push it.
We've been using Jenkins for that, but we are already doing that, so.
Okay. But I guess what we don't have is we just haven't written that many tests whose explicit purpose is to test kind of precisely integration points across repos, right? I mean, some of that happens implicitly because of dependencies. And
no, we don't. We don't have like the Cartesian product of things that kind of sort of probably should work together, like the latest version of this and the oldest version of that should work.
Yeah. And even if we don't sample that answer product densely, even if we don't sample that densely, at least a few of the key things and a few tests that potentially highlight integration points, right? Tests where it's not just a unit test on this thing happens to call that. Well, we get lucky that we test that dependency, but rather having tests that explicitly try to kind of check for actual integration. We have never really done that.
Yeah, and we're kind of starting to move towards that for the extensions that we want to ship as part of Anaconda. We are definitely going to have to make sure that everybody isn't, trying to put menu items in nth child 1 and then expect for that to be the right thing. So that's going to be pretty interesting. But that is continuing work.
Yeah, so that's kind of starting to design a little bit of a more systematic integration testing, and a strategy for that would probably be a good idea.
Yep, sure.
All right, Matthias, I think had a question for you, Min, on your.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering if we could make a longer beta for Triplets 4.3, because I think that for 4.1 and 4.2 we didn't have enough time to actually test the new version because we were all busy, and I'm slightly concerned that Triplets 4.3 will be released too soon.
Yeah, we can get the beta, and
yeah. I just don't want to rush things because I think they were rushed earlier this year. So
yeah, those were mostly released because they had been kind of sitting in master and hadn't really changed in months. So
cutting a beta and kind of communicating that so that at least we may still not get testing, but at least that's the most we can do.
Especially since it's a long-term support version that we want to release for IPython 5.0, that we commit for longer than usual. It needs to be like quite stable.
I haven't reviewed all the changes, like the latest things in Triplets. I'd like to do this before we get the beta, possible. But
yeah, Trailers 4.3 is not quite as ripe as some of the others. It has a number of useful fixes, and we should probably be thinking about a release soon. It's not like we're going to cut it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so that means the plan for Traitlets is more of Sylvan doing a little bit of testing and reviewing, and then letting us know when we cut a beta to try to elicit feedback from the public on that beta. That's one where we want at least a few week cycle of beta before we do the release.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. Okay. Sylvan?
I made a widget showcase page on Jupyter.org. So there is an open PR with that.
So it's that 93 that you have list there. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and you can already test it. I put it on my own personal GitHub pages that I wasn't using. So if just among the people who are here in the meeting, you probably have a variety of browsers. So if you want to check it out, click on the link that I provided and it should work. Normally there is a widgets tab on the web page so that you can see whether the widgets display or not.
Cool. Quick question. I see the GIF on that PR, but I don't see the live link that you say where we can test it.
The link is in the hackpad. The link is in the hackpad.
That's Jupyter GitHub IO #93, right?
That would be sylvaincorlet.github.io. Oh, I didn't put it. Oh, it's probably
no, you didn't put it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's neither on the hackpad nor on the issue, nor on the PR.
I thought it was in the hackpad. So it's sylvaincorlet.github.io if you want to test it. And actually, I also got an email from Kelly who wanted to create and make a newsletter item on the cookie cutter. And if we merge this PR before the newsletter, maybe we should include a link to it at the same time. So yeah, that's it. So sylvaincorlet.github.io, and then you should see the new tab.
Widgets. Nice. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that we want.
I think it was inspired by other widget galleries.
Of course. I mean, we've looked at these. I remember a while back looking at other galleries and saying we need something like this. So I can't thank you enough. Yeah.
So the 3D version, the 3D widgets should definitely have a 3D version of the logo.
All right. Okay.
We'll get right on
Challenge.
Challenge accepted.
All right. Very cool. Very cool.
So the other thing is I'll be presenting a tutorial at PyData Paris in a couple of weeks on how to create a custom widgets library. So I'm trying to engage more people into this. So I tried creating an entry on the Jupyter calendar with the form that I got, and it didn't seem to work. So maybe I did something wrong, but I don't see it appearing on the calendar at all. The calendar seems to be completely empty.
Yeah, I noticed that last week.
Okay, we'll check.
I meet with Anna at 11. So.
Okay, we'll follow up with Anna and find out what's going on. Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. That looks awesome. I've wanted that for a long time, so thank you so much.
I mean, there is still some review required here probably, but I mean it's decent enough to be there, I think, at this point. But I'm sure that I haven't tested on all the mobile browsers and stuff like that. So if there are people who are more proficient with Bootstrap than I am, it's the time to look at it.
Yeah, but no, just having it, at least now we can iterate on it and improve. So thank you.
So is Cameron going to look at that or something, or like what's the process for review for stuff on the website?
That's typically kind of up Cameron's alley to a good extent. I see Brian already had a look at it.
We're missing manpower anyway on the website, and Cameron will work at Microsoft, if I remember correctly, this summer. But Brian will have more students arriving at Calvolis that need to be onboarded and might be able to help.
And if not, I mean,
is this
if we don't have, we're not going to bottleneck. We're not going to bottleneck on it. So we should just, if Cameron doesn't have the cycles in a few days, my vote would be, but we can discuss that on the PR. Is well, we merge it and then it'll get improved later. But it's better to have it than not.
It looks nicer.
Some other of us you need some help to do like drop-down menus in HTML that cannot figure out in Jekyll, and you need to find them
Okay, so we
yes, well, too far from the microphone.
Can't hear you well. Say that again.
I couldn't hear Matthias, so I didn't hear anything he said.
He's too far from the microphone.
Ah, okay. So no, he was just saying that Cameron is a bit bottlenecked on a few other things as well. So we won't let this one linger for too long. If he has the cycles, I mean, it looks great. It may not be perfect, but let's not have perfect be the enemy of the good. This is good. So it can become perfect later down the road.
So he also has been working on the map for the Jupyter Hub deployment. So
yeah, no, he's quite busy.
Yeah,
he's quite busy. We don't need to bottleneck him on everything.
Is this something we could use to do the map of the Jupyter Hub site to the Jupyter courses?
We might be able to do it with the leaflet widget.
Yeah. The only point of this one is need to be rerun every time. If we do it differently, it can auto-update.
Oh, okay.
So we can.
What is it you want to do with the leaflet widget?
We want to do a map of Jupyter Hub deployments and educational Jupyter deployments so that we could have an interactive map, kind of like the Sage map of developers, like a little an interactive map where you can go and see information about both courses based on Jupyter and existing public deployments or semi-public deployments of Jupyter Hub. So that people can sort of
5-minute stuff with the leaflet widget. You can create markers on the map with the locations of deployments, and we also I have a PR with that implements a pop-up. The leaflet pop-up, so that in which you can put any other widget you want, like DOM widget, and this should work with the static widgets normally. So it shouldn't be too hard.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, that'll be great. Basically, having the markers, probably two types of markers like courses and hub with two different colors, and then when you hover or click or something on a marker, then you get a little pop-up sheet with a teeny amount of information, maybe a contact person or something like that. I mean, very basic, but I think it would be nice to have that on the website. So you said that depends on you have a PR against IPy leaflet.
I have a PR against IPy leaflet that adds pop-up. Like pop-up is a functionality of leaflet, and it was not wrapped in IPy leaflet, and I was adding it because we wanted to use it for the base hack the other time, and we couldn't because it wasn't there. And I did 90% of the work during the hack, and did not include it eventually. So it's there, it's hanging there, and I can iterate if you need. It's very simple.
Okay, so let's discuss on that so that we don't drag the meeting for too long. On that PR, on the map PR, let's ping Sylvan and maybe brainstorm on what the right order to do things, the map and the leaflet thing and whatnot, and we can figure it out. Cool. Again, thank you, Sylvan.
Hey, I've got a question. So there is sort of an elephant in the room for a lot of the widgets libraries, is that a lot of them are actually need to have some sort of resize event. So because to be able to relay out, so the matplotlib widget needs it, the bqplot widget needs it for recomputing the view box, and the leaflet widget needs it to compute the tiles that have to be downloaded. So. But I mean, I think the solution is to integrate the phosphor panel mechanism to have resize events and fit events. So yeah, anyone who is interested in working on this with me would be welcome. So I already had some discussions with Chris.
Yeah, so and the anecdotal point to that is that the original impetus, originally very 2 years ago when I first started Phosphor, was because there were no resize events in the DOM, and we needed those. And so that was basically, that whole concept was the genesis of what brought Phosphor into what it is today, was like the need for that. And as soon as you need something like that, it kind of ends up infecting your entire widget hierarchy, as Sylvan is now discovering. So,
yeah. So right now the widgets essentially are producing DOM elements, backbone view classes that essentially are DOM elements with a bunch of stuff attached to them as an object. And then we wrap those in Phosphor. So there's only Phosphor at the very top level when we're using it in a Phosphor notebook. And I think what you're suggesting is we
sort of merge the Phosphor view, the backbone view with being a Phosphor widget.
Yeah, so we make all widgets Phosphor widgets and make the whole Phosphor hierarchy. Anytime you include a widget anywhere on a page, it'll be a Phosphor hierarchy. And if it's embedded into a Phosphor page, then resize events will trickle down from the entire page. And other than that, then you'll have to trigger the top level widget that's a Phosphor element. You have to tell it when it should think that there's a resize, so when the window resizes or something like that. And then it'll trickle up and down the hierarchy of your small little group of widgets. I think that's what you were talking about.
That's the issue, because when you use CSS layouts, you don't get the resize events that you would want. And I mean, you can use a Phosphor mechanism with CSS layout, but the current ones that you're using at widgets wouldn't work out of the box. And for example, the simplest one is a Matplotlib widget, which is essentially a PNG, and you need to recompute the PNG and resize. So we need an event to trigger that.
So this starts to infect like all the layouts that we do with widgets and stuff.
Exactly.
To use like the Phosphor layouts instead of the DOM layouts.
It seems like a huge discussion to have, where we should probably have a meeting just for that.
Yeah.
I can schedule something.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't dug enough into these things to really have an opinion, so I'm mostly informing myself at this point. And I guess the question will be to look at what dependency chain that triggers for widgets in terms of deployment. And
this already depends on Phosphor at the moment.
Yeah.
What's that?
Widgets already depend on Phosphor, because when we took out jQuery and Bootstrap, we used Phosphor for the tab panel.
So this doesn't add new dependencies, is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Will it add dependency on other projects that don't use Phosphor?
What's that?
Anyway,
okay.
That later. Fine.
I think you said I was next, Fernando. Nothing to discuss, just FYI, Steve and I are working a lot on the Jupyter Lab notebook architecture, and I think we'll be rolling out essentially a huge update that includes all these updates for the architecture this week. So so that's when I'll update the server extension, and we'll get that out so that people can test it.
So this is, by that you mean the idea of having Lab become available as a standalone server extension, so that we can deploy it into a released version of Notebook.
Yeah. Okay. But what would be deployed is our big rewrite that Steve has been amazing to do practically all by himself, and that we've been working on together. And
people are kicking us.
Yeah. Anyway, so FYI, we're getting kicked out of our room, but I think that's all that I had to say.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We'll be on the lookout for that, and if you can join again, and if not, we'll see you soon. Darian, I think you're up next. If there's anything that you want to discuss other than what's in the notes.
Not really a thing to discuss so much as when Steve and Jason do push out the new notebook architecture, it's going to have console in it too. So I'd really appreciate people playing with it. That's it. There's already some bugs, and I'm looking at that, and I'll be resolving those. but beyond just bugs, usability and what you would hope to see and what you would hope to expect are more useful things that I can't really arrive at on my own. So more data would be great.
So this is going to be also rolled into the server extension. It'll become available as part of the server extension so that we can tell people. I'm sort of thinking of how we're going to get testing beyond the people who are willing to run off of master of everything like we do. And since the idea would be to be able to roll this out as a server extension that we can even micro release in alpha mode very, very often while it's in testing, and call it 001, 002, 003, whatever low enough version number indicates that this is really an alpha. Would the console be included there as well, automatically or not?
Yeah, actually, Steve's probably going to talk about that in a second.
I guess I'll just hop in there to piggyback on what they just said. Yes, we've been working on the plumbing of the architecture of documents and kernels and execution state in the JupyterLab application, consolidating that through all the different repos that we have, and that's the next point I'll get to. But as it stands right now, I just completed the plugin that will allow you to launch a console with your desired kernel, and brings up a tab in the JupyterLab environment and launches the console, and you're off and running. So that is working just at the start of this meeting. So that will be included in the next release, along with adding, thanks to Darian's completion widget, we now have completion in the notebook. There's a couple bugs associated with that, but we're working on that. To my point about the number of repos that we have, there's been a lot of confusion, even amongst the members of the team, as to what the parts of JupyterLab are, where issues should go. My thought is that anything UI related is the line. So basically, we have Jupyter.js utils and services that are used. Services is used in other contexts by like the kernel gateway. Interact uses it, but the things like Jupyter.js UI, Jupyter.js Notebook, and Jupyter.js plugins, I recommend those all just become whatever we want to call it, Jupyter/JupyterLab, and that includes the server extension, so that there's only one place when you're talking about JupyterLab visual things that you go.
I am generally a fan of fewer repos rather than the let's break the world record for 10,000 repos in 1 month. So I will not, unless there's a good reason where we really need more. I'm as a matter of principle in favor of this. I think even if it creates a little bit of additional coupling, and even if you do carry a little bit more code flying around, I think the too many repos begins creating kind of micromanagement overhead that hurts everyone in the long run. So I'm very much in favor, but I don't know enough of the details to say if in this particular case there's a good reason to keep it that way. I lean in your direction. Does anyone have a good reason why we shouldn't start thinking about that consolidation? Okay, so the plan would be, are you thinking of basically over the course of, before you put a release of this, consolidating the repos? Because obviously that is something that we'd want to plan a little bit for, and just make sure that everybody's on the same page if we're going to do some repo merge.
My intent was to finish what I'm doing now, bring that forward as a minor PR to Notebook Master, just to upgrade the button to try JupyterLab, and then take a step back, consolidate the repos, add the Notebook extension, and make this a lot cleaner.
You don't seem to be getting opposition from anyone, and you're definitely getting support from me. So.
Yeah, I give a thumbs up, by the way. Sounds great.
All right, man, go for it. Okay, Darian, did you have anything else? Because I think this was kind of in your slot.
Yeah, no, that's it for me.
Okay, so the main thing I wanted to discuss is the idea that we've been kicking around after multiple meetings that I've been involved with over the last few weeks about having an online-only mini workshop about Jupyter Hub and Jupyter Hub deployments and use cases and whatnot. We're getting hit really by too many people with these needs. And so I wanted to know, basically just mention the idea to the whole team, just to know, you don't need to answer now, but who's interested in participating in something like that. I think it's something that we would schedule in the morning, West Coast-ish, like 9 to noon, so that Min and those in Europe can join at least in the evening and not at a reasonable hour. We'll work with Anna to coordinate a good date for the people, maybe Paul, who's interested in joining. My idea would be to do basically, because we want this to be something that anyone can follow and potentially where the public can ask questions, I was thinking of doing, even though we're not thrilled about Google Hangouts, but for this one time, actually do it via Hangout, which is it's the only thing that I know of that we can broadcast in near real time via the YouTube on-air broadcast. And then we take notes on a hackpad, and we use a Gitter channel. It could be the Jupyter Notebook or we announce where. We have a Gitter channel for people to ask questions in real time and to discuss. And does that seem like a decent plan for this? And we leave the recording up with potentially, and we put up a little repo where people upload if they have slides or anything. We put these materials. My intent is really to give people out in the world who are coming and asking us these questions about Jupyter Hub deployment a quick view of the various scenarios and use cases and how you put together the various pieces of the puzzle, depending on what you're trying to do, because there's no one right answer. It depends a lot on what people are doing. And for us to learn from those people, what are key pain points that we may not have already identified. I mean, some of them we know, and I know people are working on them, but there may be other problems that we haven't really realized. So does that seem like a good plan? Is that logistic approach something that we should change?
No, I think that makes sense.
All right, then we'll work with.
I'm traveling every week, other than next week in June. So not every day of every week, but every week. So I have about 4 days in June when I'm available.
Wow. Okay. Well, when I set calendar coordination to find a good date, implicitly I was mostly thinking we will work with your schedule. That's. I mean, for this. You are the critical person, so.
Can't you just spare a clone to do that?
So yeah.
I'll work on it.
If you can't spare a clone, then we will work with your schedule, whatever it takes.
Right.
And I only had a very quick question. What are we for Jupyter Lab? This is something I forgot to ask on Friday, folks. What is going to be the workflow for now that we're really starting to get more and more feedback for tracking feature parity? There was that issue that Jason had opened a while back that was like the feature parity issue. It was a single issue. I don't remember the number, but I could find it. Or do you folks want new issues open for? I'm racking up a list of things as I use Lab. What workflow do you folks want? And this goes back to the point that Steve was just raising about repo consolidation, right? So just tell me what to do and tell everyone what to do.
Well, there are major issues that we open for the features before PR goes in. And in those major issues, we tend to have a big checkbox list. So if you see something that's a parity thing that's not in that checkbox list, the best place is to just put a comment right in that issue and have it added there. If the issue is closed already and the PR has been merged in, the assumption is that we think we're close to parity, if not actually have it, then that might require a separate issue because it might just be an oversight or it might be a bug. So my suggestion is look at the open issues. There aren't that many. It's not like a massive list, and you should be able to see what you want.
And these are all right now. Sorry, right now these are all on Jupyter.js services.
No, this is where what Steve was talking about comes in. Yeah, it's hard to know what's what unless you're already familiar. But yeah, so I think this will be a lot easier when the crunch happens and we have one repo. I don't really have a great suggestion for right at this moment, but at least we have a solution for it.
You can open them up on Jupyter.js Notebook for now, but hopefully the crunch happens soon, and then we'll have a Jupyter Lab repo. We'll rename it to Jupyter Lab, and and then there'll be one place to open up issues. I think opening up one issue per major item makes a lot of sense. If you have a bunch of small items that are all sort of related, it's nice to keep the issue count down, but I think it's fine to track things in separate issues instead of having one huge main issue.
Okay, but so we're saying for now, the starting point is going to be the JS Notebook repo. At least that's an okay entry gate for people.
Yeah, it depends if it's a notebook thing or if it's a Jupyter Lab thing. I mean, if it's a
I mean, if it's a notebook thing or a console thing, yes. If it's all the other plumbing that holds it together, then that's Jupyter.js plugins. And no other bug will have
JS UI.
No, because those won't really have visual components that people will be able to identify. Those are building blocks, not actual pieces of functionality. So it might still be the case that they'll go in plugins, I think. But you're right.
Where it makes sense, and when we consolidate, it'll be a much clearer answer.
This is the prototypical example of why the explosion of repos creates some difficulties, especially for users who are not, or folks who are not kind of like really, really deep in the weeds of what every line of code in a given repo does. But okay, we'll deal. This gives us enough to go on. Matthias?
So sure. So
you want to speak to loud and
closer and louder. So IPython 5.0 has only 7 issues left open and already 4 PRs. I'm not counting docs that need to be updated and the blog post to be written. So I'm hoping to make a beta really soon, and I will ping personally people to know if they are okay with long time support schedule. And so the question is, if we do a 5.0 soon, do we do a 4.3? If yes, do we do it after or before 5.0? Otherwise, the Jupyter Sphinx theme for the documentation needs significant refactor to avoid technical debt later. I hope that the people at Cal Poly, a student at Cal Poly with Brian, will be able to help with that when they're there. And the last thing is that now or soonish, NumPy and Matplotlib will have many Linux wheels available on PyPI. So we will be able to actually make them dependencies for tests. And so I'm considering how to discuss that online on GitHub. Actually removing that as optional dependency on test and say you have to install everything when you want to run the tests to avoid having tests that are just never runs for months because it's optional. And that's about it.
So on the testing stuff, I think if part of the reason why we made all of those tests optional is because the ecosystem for dependency management 10 years ago was a disaster, and so requiring any of that was just impossible. But I think if it's viable to assume that these things are available, I think that's a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, and it will still be optional when you install IPython. It's just if you install IPython brackets tests, it's marked out dependencies, and the test won't run. I mean, will fail if you don't have this installed.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of. It's a tricky one. Okay, let's not try to make that decision right now.
No,
I don't hold up the meeting. That's a good
warning people, and I tried it, and it's fast to install. Like on Travis, it takes like maybe 10 seconds more on the install step, and 10 seconds more to run the test. Yeah. And then you'll make sure that your tests are never skipped.
Yeah. No, it's a very valid issue. I just don't want to hold up the meeting for long for the discussion.
No, so just like warning people.
Yep. Does anybody have any opinions on the IPython 4.3? On whether we should or not have one?
I don't. We can look through the stuff that's fixed since the last release, but I don't. I think the main reason to do it is if there are significant, really annoying bug fixes to backport or compatibility issues. But I don't think.
I have a question. Matthias, do you think it would be worth it to include the work that we did on docwrapper as a configurable thing so that it could be manually enabled?
Sure. Yeah, if it's configurable, probably yes. We can try to do that. I just want to make IPython 5 as beta as soon as possible because I want like a nice long testing before SciPy. Because like SciPy is generally a place where you can tell people that it's there, they will install, they will upgrade, they will tell you the bugs, and you can sprint on that. Because like 5.0 will be released, so you can sprint and break things with codes. And because it's LTS, I want a long beta period. But if it's beyond offline, yes, we can do that.
Okay, that'd be nice then. Maybe we should make it put it behind the flag and not so, and improve on the front end part in Notebook then.
Yeah, sure. Pull request welcome.
And Nick, I think you got the last word.
Woo! All right, so I had another meeting with Anna last week. We pretty much nailed down August 13 for Jupyter Day Atlanta 2016. For setting up the workflow for getting content, we're going to be doing what the Mozilla Global Sprint has done. They've got a low barrier Google form to get something proposed, and then they transform that into an issue, and then we're going to go beyond that and give proposers an actual place within the Jupyter Day Atlanta 2016 organization. That'll be nice because then we have on-site Gitter when we're there, and we'll work with the folks at Binder and make sure that we've got running stuff there. Just in previous Jupyter days, if you actually want to get people to where they're writing code in the notebook, if you can just dump them into a binder and they can start playing with stuff immediately, that's a great way to get things going fast. So at the end of that, we should have a pretty good reproducible approach for running one of these things in as inclusive a way as possible that ends you up with some powerful resources. Other than that, and we're going to take the radio silence from Fernando and Brian that there's nothing implicitly wrong with our proposal about how we're going to run the structure of the event, taking into account that we want to build the inclusivity and diversity of the proposers and the attendees and all that. So we've got some approaches that we're going to take, mostly on the marketing push. It's hard to say you shall be diverse, but we're gonna be pushing on a lot of the local universities and places where people are hopefully using Jupyter in their schoolwork. Other than that, on the Conda front, still going through trying to get the set of extensions that we want to include with Anaconda. All these other releases that are coming out are going to be exciting. Again, the cutoff day for that, I believe, is June 16. So anything that drops before then has a pretty good chance of getting into the distribution. Anything that drops after that has basically no chance of getting into the distribution. So definitely want to make sure we can assist in any way in getting things that people think are really important into that. Related to that, there's been some talk over on the feedstock on Conda Forge 4, the notebook, which will become basically the way that we build notebook and how we want to proceed on the testing there. And raised some concerns about actually running the JavaScript tests. So if people feel strongly about how we want to be able to do integration testing on big releases like that, that would be a good place to chime in. Other than that, I'm pretty good. Anything else?
All right. Anyone? This was actually a longer meeting. I thought we were going to finish quicker. Anyone else have anything that came up that they could thought of they want to bring up?
What was Chris referring to in his chat message at Gitter?
Oh, just a joke.
Oh, it's a joke. Okay. You guys.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you all next week, and there will be a few other meetings sprinkled around the week. And I'll be there for the lab meeting on Friday, by the way. All right, folks.